Welcome to Rules of Chess, a complete beginner's guide. In this presentation, we'll cover everything you need to know to start playing the royal game. The board, the pieces, how each one moves, special moves like castling and in passant, and how games end with checkmate, and stalemate. Whether you've never touched a chess piece or you're looking to solidify your understanding of the fundamentals, this guide has you covered. Let's begin. The chessboard is the foundation of the game. It's an 8 by 8 grid with 64 squares in alternating light and dark colors. The board must always be positioned so that a light square sits in the bottom right corner from each player's perspective. The vertical columns are called files and are labeled A through H from left to right. The horizontal rows are called ranks and are numbered 1 through 8 from bottom to top. Every square on the board has a unique coordinate name. For example, E4 refers to the square in the E file in the 4th rank, which we've highlighted here in green. Chess has 6 types of pieces, each with its own movement rules and strategic value. The king is the most important. If yours is checkmated, the game is over, so its value is essentially infinite. The queen, worth 9 points, is the most powerful piece, combining the straight line movement of the rook and the diagonal movement of the bishop. The rook, worth 5 points, moves along ranks and files. The bishop and knight are each worth about 3 points. The bishop moves diagonally while the knight moves in an L shape and can jump over other pieces. Finally, the pawn, worth just 1 point, moves forward but captures diagonally. The starting position is the same for every game of chess. White's pieces occupy ranks 1 and 2 at the bottom, while black's pieces sit on ranks 7 and 8 at the top. The arrangement follows a specific order from the outside in: rooks in the corners, then knights, then bishops, and finally the king and queen in the center. A helpful mnemonic is queen on her color. The white queen starts on a light square, D1, and the black queen starts on a dark square, D8. All 8 pawns for each side fill the second rank, forming a protective wall in front of the pieces. The pawn is the most numerous but least powerful piece on the board. Pawns move forward 1 square at a time, with the special option of advancing 2 squares on their very first move. However, they capture differently 1 square diagonally forward, which is a unique characteristic among chess pieces. Pawns can never retreat. When a pawn reaches the opposite end of the board, it must be promoted to a queen, rook, bishop, or knight. The diagram shows a white pawn on E2 that can advance to E3 or E4, and capture diagonally on D3 or F3. A black pawn on D5 can advance to D4. The rook is a major piece that moves any number of squares along ranks and files, that is, horizontally or vertically. It cannot move diagonally and cannot leap over other pieces. Worth approximately 5 points, the rook becomes especially powerful in open positions where it has long lines of movement. Rooks are strongest on open files and on the 7th rank, where they can restrict the opponent's pieces. They also play a critical role in castling, which we will cover in the special move section. The diagram shows all 14 squares a rook on D4 can reach. The bishop moves any number of squares along diagonals. A key characteristic of the bishop is that it always stays on the same color square. A light squared bishop can never reach a dark square and vice versa. Each player starts with 1 of each. The bishop cannot jump over other pieces. Worth about 3 points, bishops are most effective in open positions where long diagonals are available. Having both bishops, the bishop pair, is considered a meaningful advantage because together they can control both light and dark squares. The diagram shows all 13 diagonal squares a bishop on D4 can reach. The knight has the most distinctive movement pattern in chess. It moves in an L shape, traveling 2 squares in one direction and then 1 square perpendicular. This gives it up to 8 possible destination squares from any central position. What makes the knight truly special is its ability to jump over other pieces. It is the only piece with this capability. Worth about 3 points, knights excel in closed positions where their jumping ability allows them to navigate crowded boards that restrict bishops and rooks. They are particularly strong on outposts, squares protected by friendly pawns where they cannot be easily challenged. The diagram shows the classic knight ring pattern with all 8 squares reachable from d4. Castling is the only chess move that moves 2 pieces at once. The king slides 2 squares toward a rook, and that rook hops over to the square the king just crossed. Kingside castling, written O, sends the king from e1 to g1 and the rook from h1 to f1. Queenside castling, OO, sends the king from e1 to c1 and the rook from a1 to d1. For conditions must all hold. Neither piece is moved before. There are no pieces between them. The king is not currently in check, and the king doesn't pass through or land on any attack square. Castling is usually the best way to tuck your king into safety early in the game. En passant is one of the trickiest rules in chess. It applies when a pawn uses its initial 2-square advance and lands right next to an enemy pawn. That enemy pawn can then capture it as though it had only moved 1 square, landing on the square the advancing pawn skipped over. The key point is that the capture must happen immediately, on the very next move, or the opportunity vanishes forever. This rule was created so that the 2-square first move couldn't be used as a free pass to sneak past enemy pawns. Many beginners forget en passant exists, so keep it in mind whenever pawns sit side by side on the 5th rank. Pawn promotion is one of the most exciting moments in a chess game. When your pawn marches all the way to the 8th rank, it must immediately transform into a queen, rook, bishop, or knight, your choice. 99% of the time you'll pick a queen because it's the most powerful piece on the board. But don't forget about underpromotion. Promoting to a knight can sometimes deliver a surprise check or fork that wins material, which a queen couldn't achieve because of how it attacks. You can even promote to a second queen if your original is still on the board. Remember, promotion is mandatory. A pawn can never stay a pawn once it reaches the last rank. Understanding checkmate, and stalemate is essential to playing chess. When your king is in check, directly attacked by an opponent's piece, you must escape immediately by moving the king, blocking the attack, or capturing the attacker. If you cannot escape, it's checkmate and you lose. Stalemate occurs when a player has no legal moves but is not in check. This results in a draw, which can feel like a victory if you're losing or a disappointment if you're winning. Other draw conditions include insufficient material, threefold repetition, the 50-move rule, and mutual agreement. The checkmate position shown here illustrates how the queen and king work together to trap the opposing king with no escape.